Today in GTA Online, we got a brand new car, the Vapid Dominator ASP, and in this video, I will be answering the question, is it worth it? So if you want to know everything there is to know about this vehicle before you purchase it, well then this is the video for you. So wasting no time hopping right into this thing, the Vapid Dominator ASP is actually found on the Southern San Andreas Super Autos website. And you can see here, it has, of course, the two prices, the 1.7, basically 1.8 mil buy it now price. If you don't have your Los Santos car meet reputation, I think it's around like level 50. I think that's when you unlock the trade price for this. If you do have the trade price, of course, you get it a little cheaper there, 1.3 mil. And one thing I didn't actually realize, this is in the muscles class. So if you're buying it now, you're spending $1.8 million for a muscle car. So that's like the first major thing you should probably know before buying this. I just sort of assumed it would be in the sports class, but no, it is actually in the muscle class. And as we get into the speed test here in a second, you'll see it's actually kind of a good thing because it does make the muscle class very competitive. It is one of the top, if not the best muscle car. But before we do get into that, of course, we're going to dive quickly into the customization. Because I love customizing cars, and if you are someone who loves customizing cars, well then, how does this customization hold up? We're just gonna, of course, like I always do, sort of quickly speed through this. I mean, there's just so many options, and that's a good thing. There are a ton of options on this vehicle. In a number of the categories, there are in the upper 20s for options. Now, granted, a lot of them are just like, you know, the same option, but then you have a primary, a secondary, or even a sticker bomb option. I don't think anyone should ever be using the sticker bomb options, but they are there, I guess, if you want them. But I do like the fact that Rockstar, for a lot of the parts, give you the option of choosing the primary and secondary. So you can mix and match with your paint jobs if you do want to, you know, switch things up and make this car look kind of unique. Now, one of the major downsides for me with this vehicle are the liveries. The liveries is definitely where this car falls flat. Of course, they have your simple liveries, as you'll probably see. You know, they have the striped, the white stripe, the black stripe, couple different versions of those, but then like that's kind of it. I mean, they have some flame liveries, but I'm not gonna lie, I think they look kind of stupid. And then they only have one little race livery because, of course, they have like 5 liveries locked, which I'll show when we hop into single player here. But the base liveries are just, I don't think they're that good. Now, I guess that's okay for this particular car because the stock variant, just the way it looks awesome. Like, it's literally a Mustang, you know what I mean? Like, this is actually the first relatively, I think it's like the early 2000s maybe, Mustang or somewhere in that range. But yeah, it's the only car that looks the way it does. And it does look pretty much identical to the IRL version. So I guess maybe it's okay because you might not want to put a livery on this vehicle because it might make it look kind of bad. So that was one of the downsides. And then one of the other downsides was, unfortunately, you cannot paint the stock rims. I'll show that when we, again, hop into single player, but I did just want to mention you can't like go into the iFruit app or anything or use any glitches to paint the stock rims. So I don't know if there are any other rims in the game that look like this. If anyone can find them, then let us know for sure, because I'd love to be able to change them, because I really like the way they look, but you cannot, unfortunately, paint them. Now, there are some little kind of quirks with this vehicle's customization, which I'll showcase in a second. But I guess overall, the customization is pretty solid. I'd give it like a B+. I mean, yeah, you have a bunch of different options to choose from. It's just the liveries kind of are very sucky, and I wish you could paint the stock rims. Now, those quirks, we're going to hop into single player here real quick. So there are some more issues with liveries on this vehicle. When you put the, whatever, the louvois, the things that go on the back window, the liveries kind of bleed over into it, and then certain liveries, like the flame ones, just look weird. I guess this is just a bug with this particular vehicle, but just know that if you want to have really any of these liveries, it's going to look awkward if you put those things on the back because it'll bleed through, as you're seeing. I mean, yeah, the flame ones, you can literally see the color on the back part there, and that's not right. And even the lines, the ones that are just the stripes, they sort of bleed over into them, which isn't supposed to be, it's not supposed to happen. So it is some, there's some minor issues with that. Also, and you might see it in the gameplay at one point, but there's a hood option that has its own hood pins, but then you also have an option to put an additional set of hood pins, so they kind of overlap. So I guess, you know, that's kind of a minor issue. One thing you actually probably saw in the customization I didn't mention on, but I love the engine customization. Rockstar sort of went all out with the engine customization on this one. That was definitely a big plus in my book. But actually, just quickly getting through those unreleased liveries, I don't know when we're going to get these or how we're going to get these, but you do have a couple here. So you have this Fukuru race livery, which, you know, isn't bad looking. It's pretty standard, I guess, for, you know, these race liveries. Then you have the Stance Andreas one, which actually looks kind of cool. That's one I hope we get relatively soon. I like that one. Then you have these two sort of snake liveries. You have the Python one first, which does turn that top part of your car black. You can't change that. So you have to deal with it if you want to use this livery. And then you have the Cobra livery, which just sort of makes your whole car black with just the sides having the color of the primary paint job. And then you have that camo livery, which these camo liveries always suck. So you do have a couple there that hopefully Rockstar release soon. So as far as customization, looks, everything, I'd say it's solid. Of course, you do have those quirks like I mentioned, but overall, this thing looks awesome. Now, the performance. Of course, this is what I think a lot of people want to know. Is it good? Well, first, we're going to test it against two other vehicles in the muscle class that are probably some of the best. The Dominator GTT at the top right. That's the one that just came out a couple weeks ago. And then the Yosemite, which I actually didn't know, but the Yosemite is, I think, the best, or was the best muscle car in its class. And, well, the Dominator GTT at the top right is the slowest of these three. And honestly, the new Dominator, the ASP at the bottom, it's almost right next to that the Yosemite at the top left. I think the Yosemite does get it slightly in top speed, but I mean, it's such a minuscule difference that if you are racing these things, then honestly, the Dominator ASP might be better because you might have more handling than that Yosemite. Plus, I mean, it looks better, right? Who wants to race in a truck rather than a car, a muscle car, you know what I mean? But that's not where things get weird. Things actually get quite weird when we introduce the drift tires. Now, we have 4 instances here of the same car. This is all the Vapid Dominator ASP. The bottom left, we have it stock, regular. The bottom right, we have it with drift tires. And then the top row is both of the same situations, but just stanced. So the blue one on the top left is no drift tires, stanced. The top right is with drift tires, stanced. Kind of confusing, sorry about that, but really the only thing that you need to recognize from this is honestly the stancing doesn't really do anything. Stancing does not help out this car pretty much at all because the top 2 basically finish with the bottom 2. However, the whole right side with the drift tires, they go way quicker. Like, it is insane what drift tires do for the speed on this vehicle. We finished, and then the other car, the left side, was still way behind. I think with the drift tires, we hit close to like 145 miles an hour, which is ridiculous for this car. That's literally supercar speed numbers, and we're hitting that in a muscle car. Now, of course, this isn't a straight line, so the natural downside of drift tires is lack of traction, but if you do want the highest speed possible in a muscle car, well then there's no other comparison. You put drift tires on the Dominator ASP here, and then you'll win every drag race imaginable. Now, as for the handling, I would say the handling in this car is actually top tier. This thing seems to be pretty heavy, and it does have a ton of grip. Very rarely was I ever sliding out of control in this vehicle. Also, it doesn't really bump too much. It does have a couple of spots where you're lifting off the ground, but it's not as crazy as some of those other cars. And again, I didn't lose control too often, and you guys know I'm a sort of casual driver in this game. If I can handle this, I think most people can as well. And that's sort of what you're seeing here. This, of course, is just, again, regular. This is not with drift tires. and it does stick to the corners, like I said, when you are turning. So if you are a higher top speed, you're not going to lose too much speed or too much control when you are turning. However, it does have some leeway. You can drift it slightly. It does slide a little bit. And that's honestly why I really like this car. This is a very fun car to drive. When I was driving it around in online, I was really enjoying it, which doesn't happen a whole lot when some of these vehicles Rockstar puts out. Now, if you do decide to go with the drift tires option, well, that's where, of course, things get a little tricky. This car is very hard to drift. I spun out almost every time. I mean, maybe you could probably figure it out after playing with this for like an hour or two. You could probably get the timings down and handling right. And you could probably have a lot of fun with it, honestly, especially with the speed. But if you are just a casual driver, you are going to find yourself spinning out a lot because this doesn't handle like other drift cars with the drift tires. Also, when you do put the drift tires on, you of course get less acceleration because your car just like has to spin up. So even though you do get that top speed, the acceleration of course is lowered. So for the handling, final thoughts on the handling. I mean, again, very, very good on this vehicle. And then the final thing I wanted to mention, actually there's a couple things. The noise, I love the noise of this vehicle. I think this actually might just be, you know, the noise of one of the other muscle cars because it does sound familiar, but it does sound mean. It sounds good when you're driving this around. I know a lot of people who get muscle cars, you want your car to sound that way, and this one does. So Rockstar did a good job on that. But the one thing I absolutely love on this car, and I don't know why Rockstar hasn't implemented it on some of the other vehicles. Maybe they have. I don't know. I just haven't noticed. But there's like, in the game files, Rockstar basically turned the deformation of this car almost off. I am getting destroyed by a train. Most other cars would be flattened. They'd be in, you know, a compact size by now. This car, after battling a train, almost was perfect. I mean, we did lose a fender, so I guess you can lose the fender. But as far as the deformation goes, I mean, like nothing even, it seems like nothing happened. It looks like, oh, I just ran into a wall maybe. Like there was a couple of scratches, of course, and again, the fender was gone. But like nothing else was majorly wrong with this car, and that's amazing, especially when we're playing it online. You have NPCs trying to ram into you every time you're trying to turn. So if you do end up driving this in online, the car is going to look good for the most part because it's not going to get deformed. Very rarely was I losing parts. I mean, again, I had to go through a freaking train multiple times before I started losing parts. And I just really like that about this car. So answering the question, is it worth it? Honestly, I would say yes. I understand that maybe $1.7 million is a lot for a muscle car. And honestly, that is probably the biggest thing you're going to have to ask yourself. Is 1.7 mil, if I don't have the trade price, is that worth it for a muscle car? I don't know, right? That's up to you, but you do get your money's worth, I would say. Not only is the customization great, handling's great, the speed is great, it looks phenomenal, and it barely gets destroyed in online. I mean, that's an all-around win in my book. Yes, there are those quirks I mentioned, but I think the pros far outweigh the cons on this one. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, if you're wondering, the paint job I had, you can actually do something similar. The one I had was a modded one, but you can do something similar if you use the Shafter purple metallic color with a bright green pearlescent. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I think we found our new best muscle car. Thank you guys for watching. Please drop the video a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe for more GTA content. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.